It's the First Impressions podcast. Here's Matt and Charles.
Welcome back to the First Impressions podcast. I'm Charles Horde alongside Pastor Matt Hinesley. It's been a week or so since we've done this, so I kind of been missing you here. But I know that you were out of town up in Pennsylvania, where they talk a little funny. And I know you were working with our association up there, Matt. So I wanted to give you some time and just kind of go over some of the things that you experienced, some of the things that you took away from there, and then some of the plans that you have made for us as a result.
Well, let's start with a confession that I am 46 years old, and that was my first time ever to get on an airplane.
Did y'all hear that? 46. All right.
46 years young.
Is that old, guys?
That's young.
They both said no.
First time ever getting on an airplane. It was a blast, though. It was really fun.
Good.
Wasn't nothing to it. Never was scared of it, per se. Just never had a reason to go until our associational missionary, Frank, asked us to go and to be a part of that. So I got to hop on my first airplane, and wouldn't you know it, as soon as we board the plane and get out and ready to start going to the runway, something was wrong with the computer inside, and we had to sit for like 25 minutes. And I was thinking, man, this is like the most Matt Hinesley thing ever. Of course.
That's a Charles Horde thing.
Of course, when I'm doing something new and I'm a little anxious about it,
something's got to go wrong.
Of course there's going to be something. God is going to test my patience again.
Yes.
So I'm just like, yeah, great. That was awesome. But we got to Pennsylvania. It blows my mind that I can get all the way to Pennsylvania, South Jersey, in an hour and 25 minutes.
Yeah.
So
no movie, no in-flight movie?
I started to watch a movie and saw that it was a 2-hour movie and said, forget it, can't watch the movie, I won't get done with it.
Yeah, too long.
So I just sat back, relaxed, and enjoyed the view and the ride.
Good deal.
Going there. So we had a good time. We had a great trip. It was a whirlwind trip, Charles.
I bet. It was just 2 days, right?
It was just 2 days. So we got there Monday afternoon, and we had several meetings Monday, meetings all day Tuesday, and then even a couple of meetings on Wednesday before flying back out of there and being back in Atlanta Wednesday night. And so the idea of the trip was the Baptist Resource Network, which is the same thing as the Pennsylvania Baptist Convention.
Okay.
They have asked for help and sent out a signal for a need to help with the Baptist churches in that area, with some church plants, with some ministry leaders there. A lot of them face a lot of different challenges. Some of the communities that we visited are some of the fastest growing communities in the country right now. Yet just to look at a basic fact, in the state of Georgia, we have over 34,000 Southern Baptist churches, which, we believe that Southern Baptist churches are Bible-believing, Bible-preaching, sound theology, practical application of it in the best possible way. In the state of Pennsylvania, in the area where we were at, there were less than 300 churches that are Southern Baptist churches. Wow. So, of course, Southern Baptist churches aren't just in the South. They're all over the world.
Right.
And all over the country. But it's one of that Pennsylvania, South Jersey area is one of the toughest places to plant a church. It's one of the hardest places in the country to do ministry.
Why is that?
Well, for one instance, there's just so many lost people in that area. There's over 14 million estimated lost people.
Wow. Just in the Pennsylvania area.
Just in the Pennsylvania, South Jersey area. So that's a very difficult thing. But the only example they've had there has been some more orthodox denominations and some folks that were just playing church. And so they haven't necessarily rejected religion. They've just rejected organized religion in a lot of ways, because all they've seen is essentially for some Catholic churches where you go in, do your mass, and you're out, and nothing ever changes. Right. And no churches there have ever really tried to invest in a community there and invest in what they're doing. So everything they do there, it's sort of a first.
Okay.
They're starting from scratch a lot of ways. 85% of the Southern Baptist pastors in that area are bivocational. Nothing wrong with that. 85%.
Wow.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing less than that. It just means
it's indicative of the area, though.
There's
the church is not big enough to support a full-time pastor.
Most of the church plants that we saw, 20 to 25 people tops, with very few actual folks there to do the work. It's pretty much the pastor, doing everything.
I get it.
And so we got to meet several of those guys in the area, but the need really is great. And I know just listening to a guy who went isn't always the most inspirational thing, like it is to see it.
Sure.
But when you see it, you realize the need that we have in that area.
Yeah. So talk about some of the people that you got to interact with. I know that you met some different people that have started some different ministries and things like that. One of them in particular really, it just caught my attention, and I thought it was really cool. But it was the citrus farmers that you got to. I say farmers are the ones that are picking the citrus out there.
Yeah. So next to maybe say Washington, Pennsylvania, this area is big in apples.
I would never have known that.
I didn't either. I had no clue.
Yeah.
But there's a pastor named Christian Aguilar. He works with the Fruit Worker Farmers Ministry.
Migrants. They're migrants.
It's all migrant workers.
Yeah.
It's all Hispanic men and some family members who are here on visas working for anywhere from 8 to 12 months.
Wow.
In these farms. And these farmers, the growers, as they call it, they have to provide a camp for them to stay. So these migrant workers go to the field, work 8 to 10 hours a day, come back to the camp, rest, sleep,
get up and
repeat.
do it all over again. Yeah.
And so they never see anybody.
Yeah. Where are they from, typically?
The group I met was from Honduras, but pretty much anywhere in South America.
Wow. All the way up in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, all the way up in Pennsylvania, because that is one of the biggest areas. In fact, this time of year, they have over 500 people in the migrant camps.
500?
500 right now.
Wow.
And so between June and November, they'll have somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,500.
You're kidding.
In various different camps across the state.
Wow.
So we only got to go see one small group from one camp, one area.
Okay.
That was probably the most transformational thing I saw.
Okay.
I'm like probably most any other American right now. You have an issue with illegal aliens. You have an issue. Right. You see those who take. You see those who cheat the system. You see the ones that aren't paying taxes. These are not those guys.
Okay. These are hard workers.
These are hard workers. These are men and women who make in a week what they would make in a month and a half back home.
Wow.
So for a lot of these guys, their only chance and their family's only chance is them to come here. And so, it changed my, honestly, full confession, it changed my worldview, and I saw it differently when you realize that these men are sacrificing everything for their wife and children.
Wow.
And to think what an example that is of what Christ did.
Sure,
where he died, the dying to self, and the thing that we're called to do as men, these men are living it out. In fact, just a quick example, one of the men I met who was the most happy, joyful worker and worshiper that we saw together had in the months previous, while he was here, lost his daughter.
Oh my gosh.
His daughter died, and he stayed to work.
Wow.
And people ask him, how did you decide to stay? Because his leaders, his folks that brought him over here said, we will get you back home. This is not going to be a problem. But if you're not working, you're not making money. And so he said, if I went home and lost this chance, the rest of my kids don't eat.
Wow.
And the rest of my family doesn't eat. And everybody's counting on me. He essentially, from my point of view, had to just sort of suck it up and deal with it.
Can you imagine being a father in that position?
I can't even know.
It's crazy.
Not with my kids. And it's just to imagine what he's missing out on, and then when he's there, it's him and the other workers and nobody else. They don't see anybody. They don't go anywhere. They don't do anything. They don't get to see their wife at the end of the day. They don't get to see their family. Definitely don't get to tuck their kids in bed like we all get to if we want to do.
They're thousands of miles away.
And so really, just like those apple orchards are ripe for the harvest up there. That is a perfectly untapped and needed mission field right there.
Yeah, and you mentioned Christian Aguilera, so that's kind of his.
Yeah, he is a pastor who runs essentially this ministry.
Okay.
And so their ministry is to the 2,500 migrant workers in different camps, and so they have a home church. But they're like you might imagine. That ministry and those migrant workers can use a little of anything or everything. I mean, you imagine it, they need it.
So they come over here with nothing.
So they come with just very little. Okay. The growers, the farm owners, they provide most of the basics.
Okay.
Let's say some camps are decent, some camps are not.
Okay.
Some farmers offer a little more, some don't.
Okay.
And so, but pretty much, if it's cold and you need a jacket, where you getting it from? And so, our vision and my vision, and I think the vision of our association is find a way to get them, instead of them having to wait and put out a call for the things they need.
Right.
What if we can already sort of picture what they're going to need and have it there waiting and available? Because there's 2,500 of them. And so there's a lot of needs between clothes, toiletries, towels, sheets, blankets. And people ask me all the time in church, and probably, you've probably asked this before, hey, look, I gotta, we're getting a new couch at our house. And we think it's nothing. It's like, hey, can the church use or anybody use my old couch?
Right.
And I'm telling you right now, these folks could use it.
Yes.
And so what we're trying to do is put something together with our container ministry to where we can take a 40-foot enclosed container, fill it to the brim with everything and anything they might need, and be able to deliver to them what is essentially a rolling thrift store.
Yes.
Where when something need comes up,
they got it.
Christian can say, I got you.
Yeah.
And so
tell you how God works. So you answering the call, to go up there to Pennsylvania, meeting people who are there all the way up in Pennsylvania from Honduras, and then back at home having a missionary here in our church that goes back and forth to Honduras, probably more than he's here in America, and who you mentioned the container ministry. That is our ministry to Honduras, and it's so interesting now to be able to use that in Pennsylvania for the Honduran people that are there, and these people didn't know that you had that contact. They didn't know that.
No, they had no idea.
Missionaries.
Didn't know me from the Man on the Moon.
Right.
And Sandy and I have been talking about and praying about how we can best use this container ministry. And up until that trip, I said, look, here's some ideas. Maybe. I don't know how we're going to fill that whole thing.
Right. But God knows.
But God knows, and God's been planning out all these little details together. And if you think God is not in the details of your life, He is in the details of your life.
Yeah.
He knows what's coming down the track, and He's already preparing a thread that runs through all of it. And so for us, if these men and women are going to sacrifice so much for their families, then we can sacrifice and get the things to them that they need. And so that was probably, that's probably the most eye-opening.
Yeah. Think about how God put you in that position, and you personally, think about how God moved you, here to Zebulon 5 months ago, put you in that position, and then Frank's like, hey, do you want to fly to Pennsylvania? I've never flown before, and it's incredible that God puts all that in place.
Yeah, well, and it's so different too, because for the last 15 years I've been an associate pastor, and I've been willfully and gratefully under the vision of somebody else.
Sure.
And they say this is the vision, and then my job is, how do you make this happen?
Yeah, right.
Pull this off.
Yeah.
Do this.
Yeah.
And so now it's a challenge to me, and I'm being challenged and stretched, and I'm being, God is growing me and saying, not only now do you need to pray through the vision, but then you're also going to get to do what you do best. And so I'm up there with a lot of guys that we were looking through and talking through, and a lot of folks look and see need, and they dream of what to do to fix it.
Yeah.
I'm the type of guy, Charles.
It's a difference.
It's like, no, what are we going to do right now?
That's
because you can dream and dream and dream
and not do
and
a
nothing
thing.
ever changes and nothing ever happens.
Yep.
And I would love to fix everything that's wrong with society.
Sure.
And everything that's wrong with the things. I'd love to be able to fix it. I'd love to come up with a perfect magic wand, and say, hey, fixed.
Right.
Can't do that. Most of us not going to do that. It's probably never going to get ultimately fixed. So where do we meet needs in the middle?
That's right.
Remembering that Jesus, in every big miracle situation or any big thing that he did, met a need that was physical first.
And he went there to meet the need.
So he was there.
Yeah.
He met the need.
Yeah.
Did the physical need, and then he told them about his Father.
That's right.
And so for us, it may not be that Matt Hinesley or Charles Hord ever gets the chance to lead necessarily one of those men or women to Jesus.
Right.
But if we can help Christian and those working in his ministry
That's right.
meet those needs, he's already put in the legwork with the relationship side of things and building that foundation and building that ministry to where he can say, hey, I've got this that you need. Let me fill your need.
That's right.
And then those people are going to ask him, Christian,
where did this come from?
Where did this come from?
Yeah.
Why you do this?
That's
How
right.
do you do this? Because
That's right.
I want to show the love of Christ with you in a very
right.
practical way, and then he can.
That's where you come
be
in.
able to lead them in. So
yeah, that's where everybody else comes in.
Yeah,
as far as like you said, the couch or even cleaning out your closet. The weather's starting to warm up.
Shoes.
Yeah, clothes. Anything that you can think of.
You can put his stuff on Marketplace and sell it for $5.
Sure.
Big whoop.
But you can
that
change
$5
somebody's
to
life.
you won't change your life.
That's right.
It might change a whole community's
That's
life
right.
in that area. So that's one of the big ones.
Yeah.
That
But
we
not
saw.
the only one.
It's not the only one. So we visited with like 9 or 10 different ministry locations, different sites. I met a guy named Chapin Jones.
Yep.
Who is from South Carolina, planting a church in Sealands Grove, which I hope to hear a little more from, and you guys be able to hear about him a little more upcoming. Guys like Ed Roman, who are pastoring in a very low income community, but a community that's trying to raise their children, and they're trying to do everything. It just happens to be very low income. We've met people at biker churches. We met people from all over, really, that we were able to get to know and to talk to, and folks in downtown Harrisburg. There's just you got everything from downtown inner city slums to way out there where the Amish are, to up towards Gettysburg where the fruit workers deal is, to sort of up and coming hipster areas. It's all of that. It's the whole spectrum.
Yeah.
And if you think about how big, and just go Google Pennsylvania, South Jersey.
Yeah.
It's huge area,
sure
and there's
is.
less than 300 Southern Baptist churches in the area.
Yeah. So it's underserved.
So
It's
yeah,
definitely
so
underserved.
that it makes it to where that mission field is hugely ready and needing of some help. And of course, we know Acts tells us you got to go. And while you're going, you make disciples. You do that in your hometown,
Right.
but you also do that outside of your own area, because we can get real comfortable in our hometown,
Of course,
and we get stuck in our routines and we get stuck in what we do.
Yeah, and
but
become
you
stagnant.
make that decision to get out of town a little bit, then you'll
Change
see a
it.
different way of life. You'll see some different things, and it will change your life. So what I'm doing is praying through this situation. Like, look, we know as an association that it's almost too easy to help Christian Aguilar and the fruit workers.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't take a lot of brain power to go fill that thing up with the things they need, get it to them, go help them. That solves an issue. But we are so used to, especially in the state of Georgia, we're so used to being blessed and just throwing money at something or throw a little bit of time at it, and we never get to meet the people. What I'm praying through is for our church, Zebulon First Baptist, how can we create something that will look like maybe a 3 to 5 year, I'm thinking 5-year ministry partnership
plan
with a church plant in that Pennsylvania, South Jersey area. And I'm looking, how can we not just and not only, help them financially maybe, but way more than that, how can we help them with going and being manpower to
That's
people
it.
that need manpower.
That's it.
How can we use our gifts, whether that is construction, whether it's gardening,
Right.
whether it's DJ skills that you guys have, or whether it's just hanging out with other teenagers or helping with children in that area. How can we help them help their community? We don't want to just see, that's what we do in America. The government just throws money at stuff.
That's right. Yeah.
And you have to teach people how to reach their own and to reach their own community.
It's different with boots
so
on the
if
ground.
we can go be boots on the ground, help these men and women do the ministry,
Right.
take some of the pressure off of them, do some of the heavy lifting for them, give them a boost.
Yeah.
Maybe now in 10, 15 years, we look down the road and we go, man, look what that church plant did. And all they really needed was a boost.
Right.
And we've got, so here's why here's why I'm looking at this. Our church, we would succeed very well under the 20-year rule.
Okay.
So the 20-year rule is look at the people in your church
Yeah.
and add 20 years.
Okay.
Who's left?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there are a lot of churches, unfortunately, that are looking around at the 20-year rule and going, we've got nobody left here in 20 years.
It's a scary thought for some. Yeah.
But you look at Zebulon First Baptist, and I'm looking in we're here in the youth house right now, and I'm looking around that are going to be the core of the church in 20 years. How do we keep them engaged in ministry?
That's right.
How do we keep them engaged in church so that after graduation, they don't just leave the church altogether?
Right.
But we're also blessed in our church to have young adults who are going to be in prime years in 20 years.
Right.
We have medium adults that are going to, everything is like we need to capitalize on this moment right now to reach people and for our church to do and be involved in missions in a way that will propel our church for the next 100, 200 years.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at 5 years and saying, look, I want to partner with a church and say, for the next 5 years, our missions trips, our extra mission endeavors over and above the cooperative program and things like that is to your neighborhood, your community.
Let's take a bus up there. Yeah.
So you take teenagers up there, you take adults up there.
Yeah.
What if we, what would it look like for every generation to be doing ministry together? Because there's areas, and it's not that hard to get there. But 5 years.
Yeah.
And I say 5 years. Look at the 8th graders we have in youth group right now.
Okay.
In 5 years, they'll be graduating.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
What would it do for them to be able to see from starting with nothing to 5 years from now when I graduate, this is the impact that was not only made on my church, but it was an impact we did something out here. I left my comfort zone.
That's right.
Was still in my gift zone that God has gifted me.
Yeah.
And I went and did ministry. And so now when I graduate high school, I'm not getting involved in a bunch of weird stuff. If I leave to go away to college, I'm looking for a church that does mission
do that. That's
the
right.
way my home church
That's
did.
exactly right.
And so that's what I'm looking for
Plus
our church.
the strengthening of your faith, having participated in something like that, and being able to see how the Spirit moves in situations like that. I think it's invaluable.
Yeah, anytime you can do transformational and not transactional ministry.
Yeah, definitely.
That adds a different element to it. And so that's what we're
it's
looking
easy for us to stroke a check and say, "Oh yeah, that sounds great. Here's a check for $100." Yeah, while that's great, it will be totally different for you, church, if you would pray about and consider, let's get up there. Let's go see these folks. Let's go work with these folks. Let's pray with these folks. Let's pray over people like Christian Aguilera. What's the last
Aguilar.
Aguilar, Christian Aguilar. And in fact, they need to be in our prayers anyways, starting now.
Sure.
But could you imagine being up there and seeing these migrant workers?
Well, and that's the thing is, look, I know there are people in our church that'll go, man, I can't physically go to Pennsylvania. I understand that. Right. What I can do is write you a check.
Sure.
But
it's needed.
That is so needed,
Absolutely.
and it's important because there are going to be some people who will say, man, I can go and work my tail off, but I don't have a lot of money to offer.
Right.
And now we come together, and now we're all doing the work.
Right.
And we're doing what God has called us to do.
That's called functioning as the body of Christ.
And I think, our church is primed and ready to be super healthy and a dynamic church. and I just want to be a part of it.
Absolutely.
I don't want to play church. I don't want to just sit here and stay alive. I don't want to just sit here and see what we're going to do, and then 5 years down the road we've done nothing. I'm ready to go.
That's right. Well, let's do our last words then, Matt. So last words from you, and then I'll end it up.
You mentioned it just a second ago. Just pray really hard for these different ministries and pray for our church as we seek to answer and to meet those needs.
Definitely. Last words from me, I'm just going to echo that. Pray over these ministries, and this is one of 1,000 that we could be a part of. There's plenty of things going on locally. Just to give you one specifically to pray for, the students are going to Student Life in 2 months. And so we've got a big ministry opportunity coming up there, and it's a good way to practice for a ministry like that at Student Life. So be in prayer for that as well. But if you feel the Lord's leading you to do something, reach out to Matt, reach out to anybody in the church, and see how you can be a part of that. We'd love to talk to you more about it. So Matt, I appreciate it, man, and I'm glad that you had that opportunity. Appreciate you pushing the church to do this. I'm gonna let you get across the street to Wednesday night Bible study. I know they're looking forward to hearing from you. So for Matt Hinesley, I'm Charles Ord. First Impressions Podcast. We're out. See ya. Holla.